Brock Purdy led the league in just about every stat this year, but one stat he didn't lead in was PFF grades, where he had an 87 grade compared to Goff's 85, which illustrates that Purdy probably has the edge in this matchup, but it's actually pretty close. One area that's not close, though, is San Francisco's weapons against Detroit's defensive backs. Deebo Samuel is a lot better than any outside corner Detroit has, and he's the wide receiver 2 for San Francisco. That should especially be a problem because Detroit runs a lot of man coverage, which will obviously expose the skill difference in these players more so than if Detroit was in zone coverage, which would kind of shield them from being exposed so much. But when they do go to zone, it's cover 3, which is something that Kyle Shanahan will expose with his crossing routes that he likes to run in the first place. So there are some real issues for how Detroit matches up to the passing game of San Francisco, both schematically and talent-wise. As far as the offensive line for San Francisco goes, San Francisco is far and away the best rushing team in the league. They ranked first in rushing expected points added, which if you don't know what that stat means, I have a video that explains it. And in addition to that, they're also first in rushing success rate as well, which is basically how often you exceed expectations based on historical data for the same situations, like first and 10. So that's all really good. But one thing is, Detroit is also really tough against the run because they ranked fourth in rushing expected points added allowed. San Francisco should have the slight edge rushing then, but they're not at a major advantage like they have been for much of the year, and they're at a major disadvantage actually in protecting Purdy. Trent Williams is a stud, and John Feliciano is good, but then everyone else is pretty rough. If Detroit then can cover for just a couple seconds, Aiden Hutchinson should be able to get quick pressure, and Lee McNeil could be disruptive up the middle as well, which is really problematic because Brock Purdy can't create as much as some of the elite quarterbacks can in this league. So if he's getting pressured up the middle, he's not going to be able to do much to extend the play. And if he's getting pressured on the edge too, he's not really going to be able to escape the pocket. So there are some real issues for San Francisco as well. Moving to the other side of the ball, Deommodore Lenoir and the great linebackers of San Francisco should help minimize the damage Amon-Ra St. Brown can do. But St. Brown is so good, he should be able to pose some problems for San Francisco nonetheless. Similarly, Fred Warner is about as good as you'll do for someone to eliminate a elite tight end like Sam Laporta. So Detroit will have to look for secondary options like Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs to help in the passing game because in addition to San Francisco matching up well with the two primary options for Detroit, Josh Reynolds will likely be erased from the game by Charvarius Ward. So there's a lot that is going to be taken away from Detroit, and it'll be up to them to find the secondary and tertiary options that will be able to help them in the game. Detroit, one thing they have working for them, though, is they had the 8th best pass blocking unit compared to the 3rd best pressure unit in San Francisco, according to PFF. So it should be a good-on-good matchup, which usually favors the pass blocking unit. So Detroit is in a pretty good position as far as that concerns, but it's going to be tough to pass block against this unit in any fashion because Nick Bosa is elite, Javon Hargrave is elite, Eric Armstead is elite. You can go player by player and see great talent. So even though I think Detroit should have success in pass protection, I think there's still going to be plays, obviously, where Bosa can beat Penei Sewell and get through. And I think there'll be times where Bosa is kept from Sewell and goes against Decker because that might just be a little bit of an easier matchup for Bosa. So I think there will be some success for the 49ers pass rush, but I don't think it'll be anywhere near the success that Detroit will have rushing the passer because they should really be able to get to Purdy. Detroit, moving on, won't really have any issues rushing because they're ranked fourth in rushing EPA, which is obviously elite. And they're going against the 25th ranked San Francisco defense in that same stat. So it is elite Detroit rushing against really poor San Francisco run defense. And an aspect that's really interesting about that, too, is I got this from Mina Kimes, by the way. Dan Campbell is really aggressive on his fourth down decisions, obviously. And what is so relevant about that is San Francisco is the worst short yardage team in the league. So the Lions will be able to set up fourth downs in favorable situations because they'll be able to use third downs to set up fourth downs. So I think the Lions actually will have some sort of chance at least rushing the ball because they're going to be able to use an entire additional down than most teams are going to be able to do. Especially, too, the 49ers are not aggressive on fourth downs with Kyle Shanahan. So the Lions will be able to do something that the 49ers aren't able to do, which is that enough to tilt things in favor of the Lions? I don't think so. I think the talent gap is pretty large between them and the 49ers. I think if you just go position by position, the only positional group I like for Detroit over San Francisco is the offensive line, which is obviously a very important positional group to have the advantage in. But when you go through position by position and everything else is in favor of San Francisco, I think that's pretty difficult to outweigh, especially because the coaching advantage, I would also say, is with the 49ers because Kyle Shanahan is an absolute guru, even if he doesn't have the greatest in game management skills from time to time. I think the plays he draws up put his players in the absolute best positions to perform, which is the same thing for Ben Johnson, really, the offensive coordinator for the Lions. But I think Shanahan just does it at a little bit of a higher level. He has a little bit more experience in these situations. I think Johnson is really good as well, but I think he just has a little bit less at his disposal. So I think the edge is definitely with San Francisco here. They are at home as well. I think there is definitely an avenue for the Lions to win because if they can just cover for, a second and a half, which is really a tall task because Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel are elite. Then George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey are third and fourth options for the passing game, which is insane to think. But they are completely stacked. So it'll be very difficult to cover even for that second and a half. But if they are able to, Aiden Hutchinson and Aleem McNeil should be able to pressure and disrupt this game quite a bit because Purdy is just not the same quarterback when he's pressured as he is when he's kept clean. So there definitely is an aspect that favors Detroit, and there's definitely a way for Detroit to win this, but I think San Francisco is going to win because they're just a more well-rounded team at the moment. Detroit is still really missing some defensive back help, which is going to make it difficult to cover for that short period of time. So I think overall, San Francisco is better set up for success Sunday, but be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below, and also be sure to like and subscribe for more content.